Alright guys, I hope you're ready because this is vocabulary lesson number 13. It's your very last vocabulary video that you will have to deal with. So this is video 4 of 4 for the very last, the fourth additional focus for vocabulary. So once you finish this video, you are done with your words. So let's get started. Alright, so your very first word is desecrate, which is a verb, and it means to profane a holy place. So desecrate is almost always used in relation to religion, so to profane a holy place. So here we have, while many thought the graffiti on the side of the church wall was an act of desecration, a few saw it as an artful expression. So the idea of doing some kind of offensive thing or leaving an offensive mark in a holy place. All right. Also, if you are curious, desecrate is the verb, but the noun is desecration. So add an ION, desecration is the noun. So next up, we have the word fortuitous, which is an adjective, which means accidental, happening by chance or luck. So let's see it in action. The fortuitous shooting star gave promise of a brighter tomorrow. So the shooting star is accidental, it's happening by chance or luck. It wasn't planned. However, it seems lucky. So the idea is that when you use fortuitous, it's by chance, it wasn't planned, but it has connotations of luck. So this is like saying the lucky shooting star, but instead we're saying the fortuitous shooting star is giving promise of a brighter tomorrow. It's suggesting good things. All right. Next up, we have the word vehement, which is an adjective, and it means urgent, passionate, forceful. And oftentimes, it's linked with fights or passionate speeches or strongly felt exclamations. So here we see it in the sentence, Jess and Nick were in the middle of a vehement fight and screaming and yelling at one another in the living room of the loft. So here we see the adjective vehement, describing the kind of fight that they're having. And of course, you can use it as an adverb, saying vehemently. So for our next word, we have credulous. Say that one more time, credulous, which is an adjective, and it means gullible and overly trusting. So gullible is a vocabulary word we've had in the past, and here we see it again as a definition for credulous. So the credulous monster believed that all kids would love him if he just gave a friendly wave. Unfortunately, it didn't end up, that should say up, being that easy. So credulous, we have gullible. So credulous has connotations of being hopeful and believing in the best in people, and ultimately it not being true. So the credulous monster. Next up, we have blasphemy. So blasphemy is a noun, and it's a heretical departure from accepted practices. Similarly to before, blasphemy tends to have connections to religion, so therefore has religious connotations and is often used in that context. However, not always. So for instance, here we have Henry Jones, Indiana Jones's father, found Indiana's treatment of archaeological sites blasphemous by the standards of their profession. So essentially, if you have a set of norms that people hold very seriously, almost in a religious manner, you can then use the word blasphemy and blasphemous. So do remember that blasphemy is the noun and blasphemous is the adjective. So next up we have lax, which is also an adjective, and it means careless, not diligent, and relaxed, which has the same root word. So here we have, she had to be honest with her friends. The reason why no one, and that should say friend, she had to be honest with her friend. The reason why no one ever invited her over was because she was too lax with other people's things. So lax has connotations of carelessness. It has a lot of negative connotations. Usually you're not going to use lax in a positive way. Another way that lax is used is when you have lax rules, rules that are not strictly held and can easily be broken. Alright, next up we have the word cryptic, which is an adjective, and it means mysterious, puzzling, or a previous vocabulary word we had, enigmatic. So here we have the cryptic figure in the snow-laden woods crept along hidden by his black cape. So cryptic means mysterious, you're not sure who it is, and it also is slightly foreboding. So usually things that are cryptic are difficult to understand, but what you are trying to understand could lead to something really terrible and scary. So keep those connotations in mind when using the word cryptic. When you use the word enigma and enigmatic, it has less of a scary connotation. Enigmas tend to be a little more kind of related to aliens and the unknown, and cryptic has often more times links to things such as the crypt keeper, like monsters and zombies and mummies and stuff like that. All right, so next up we have the word hinder, which is a verb, and it means to obstruct, to get into the way, to slow down. So here we have the blizzard hindered R2-D2's ability to transmit his signal. That's a typo. There was no way it would get through to the base. I have to fix that right now. That's terrible. All right, here is our fixed sentence. The blizzard hindered R2-D2's ability to transmit his signal. There is no way it would get through to the base. So the snow cover, the clouds are obstructing his signal, and therefore we see the use of the verb hinder. All right, next up we have esoteric, which is an adjective, and it means understood only by a select few. So rocket science is an area of study and profession that is considered as esoteric, very difficult to understand by most. So while we have words that mean mysterious, such as cryptic and enigmatic, which also mean difficult to understand, esoteric is difficult to understand in a means that's a little more practical. It's not linked to aliens or to the crypt keeper or to zombies. It's oftentimes linked to areas of study, whether in science or English or history, wherever, that are difficult to understand. So next up, we have pretentious, which is also an adjective, and it means pompous and self-important. So here we have, Ted could sometimes be pretentious, such as when he said things like, "My parents live in Ohio, I live in the moment." So people who are pretentious tend to be arrogant, and they say things that are very snooty and make themselves sound really amazing, when in actuality people don't agree with them. They find them essentially just kind of annoying. And so that's what pretentious is. If you wanted to turn the adjective pretentious into a noun, it would be pretension. And let me say that one more time because I think I mispronounced it. So while the adjective is pretentious, the noun is pretension. So with an S-I-O-N instead of a T-I-O-N. All right, so next up we have incongruous, which is an adjective, and it means not fitting in and out of place. So here we have Darth Vader, and a stormtrooper's presence on the carousel was an incongruous sight to see. So here we see incongruous, meaning that it's out of place. They do not belong. This is very weird looking. If you wanted to use a noun, it'd be incongruity, which is a word you might be a little more familiar with. So next up we have the word unprecedented, which is a long word, and it is an adjective, and it means occurring for the first time. Novel, which is a word we've had previously and never seen before. So here we have the shocking data indicated an unprecedented increase in snow accumulation. If this trend continued, there would need to be, we'll say that says vast improvements, significant improvements made to infrastructure. All right, so unprecedented is an adjective. So next up we have the word merger, which is a noun, and it's a joining and a uniting. So it might remind us of the word coalesce, which has some similarities. So here we have the mergers between businesses like Exxon and Mobil work to access more consumers within the same market. So merger is a word that we might be used to because it's oftentimes used with businesses. So when you think about coalesce, know that coalesce tends to have more connections with science. It can also be literary in nature, while mergers have more practical connections to businesses and about them combining. However, you've heard the word merge, which you've probably used before many times. All right, so our next word is pedestrian, which is an adjective, and it means common, ordinary, and yes, here it is again, banal. So if you've been keeping a list of words that mean banal, which is a very long list at this point, add pedestrian to it. So pedestrian's kind of centered around the idea of ordinary. It's something that you see every day. So it's a little different than insipid and banal. Make sure to note the differences, and especially with all the other ones that we've gone over in the past videos. So here we have, while some people may consider my shoes pedestrian in comparison to others, they are my favorite pair. So it's the idea that these shoes you might see every day, while these shoes you probably wouldn't, and therefore these are more pedestrian. Alright, so next up we have prudent, which is an adjective, and it means careful and cautious. So Harold the bird wanted to be prudent in his selection, so he looked between the two options again and again. So prudent does have some slightly negative connotations to it. You might have heard the word and it's kind of insulting. You shouldn't use it, but it's prude when you're calling someone a goody two-shoes. So prudent goes along with that word. It means somebody who's kind of overly cautious, who overthinks things, who might take too long to make a decision and cannot be spontaneous because they're so worried about the consequences. So that's when you would use the word prudent. And please note that prudent is an adjective. If you want to turn it into a noun, you would use prudence instead, which means you drop the T and you add a CE. Alright, so our next word is exemplary, which is an adjective, and it means outstanding and setting a great example. So exemplary example. Awesome. So here we have, upon looking at his dinner plate, he grasped at the only conversation topic that could come to his mind, how the boiled potatoes were exemplary, cooked just as they should be. So exemplary is used a lot in a lot of different ways. So for instance, when you guys write a really great essay or a great project, I use it as an exemplary project that I show other students so that they can create something just as exemplary. So keep that in mind. It's a very common word that you can use in many different ways. So next up we have the word sycophant, which is a noun, and the definition itself is quite odd. It's considered a booklicker and a brown-noser. So let's talk about what that means. So a sycophant is someone practicing obedient flattery. That's a little easier to understand. So here we have Waylon Smithers in The Simpsons is known for being a sycophant. He is always using flattery to get on the good side of his boss, Mr. Burns. Alright, so hopefully that helps you a bit, but essentially a sycophant is somebody who sucks up to another person in hope to gain advantage. Alright, so next up we have neutral, which is a word we might be familiar with, and it's an adjective. So it means unbiased, and we've seen unbiased a good bit with objective, impartial. I know there's a couple other ones in there. And it's not taking sides, being objective. So here we have, after fighting over the tennis ball for several minutes, Missy and Maisie decided that they needed a neutral party to help decide who is the rightful owner. So neutral parties tend to help with mediation, so keep that in mind when you use the word neutral. Next up, we have rescind, which is a verb, and it means to repeal, to take back formally. So here we have, with the contract fully rescinded, Paula did not have to worry about an automatically renewing fee pulling funds from her account. So the word rescind can be used in a lot of different ways. You can rescind an offer, you can rescind a contract. It is oftentimes used for legal jargon and also within businesses, so do keep that in mind. But you can use it in a lot of different ways. So next up, we have a similar word, which is retract, which means to take back. So we have rescind, which is to repeal, to take back formally. So note that rescind has more of a formal connotation to it. As I said, it was used in businesses and law. But here we have a less formal one, to take back, retract. So here we see, have you ever said something and immediately regretted it? Those are times when I wish I could retract my statement. Now you can still see retract in legal jargon. You'll definitely see it there. But retract is also often just used in kind of common conversation and other forms of writing. So keep that in mind. All right. So that is it, guys. We're done. So you have gone over all the words that you need for all of the assessments. Once you pass this fourth additional focus, do make sure to check out the challenge focus. That's for vocabulary. It will use all of these words that you have learned in one assessment. So if you've done your job and you've learned these words thoroughly, then that challenge should be something that you can complete now or after a little bit of studying. So good job and good luck with this, and thank you for watching all these videos. Bye.